Good evening. Welcome, members, officers and members of the public. You're all welcome here tonight for this meeting of the Development Committee on the 24th of September 2025. Can I draw everyone's attention to page 3 within the agenda, which sets out the details regarding fire safety instructions and the webcasting arrangements. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, please leave the building via the nearest exit and make your way to the assembly point located in the market car park adjacent to the Civic Suite building. Please do not return to the building unless given permission by council staff. That's the end of the main announcements. If you would just bear with me for a moment. I had a conversation with a member of the public at the end of the meeting of the planning policy in July, and they expressed concern that they didn't understand an awful lot of what was going on because of the acronyms that we use here at council, which members are all very familiar with, but unfortunately it does actually confuse a lot of people when they come in for the public. And this is a public meeting. We should be very mindful that we are actually able to describe exactly what's happening. So what I'm going to ask is that members and officers alike, if you have any acronyms that you refer to, could I ask that the first time that you bring them up, that you actually, I'm not sure what's going on with this PA system, the first time that you actually mention them, that you give them the full explanation so members of the public and those viewing online can understand exactly what we're talking about. Thank you for bearing with me on that one. Okay, apologies for absence. I have quite a few tonight and quite a lot of substitutes, so bear with me. Councillor Stuart Wilson is being substituted by Councillor Gooding. Councillor Constable is being substituted by Councillor Marriott. Now, Councillor Lorraine-Shaw sends her apologies. She was going to have a substitute, but unfortunately some substitute can't make it for family reasons. Councillor Knight substituted with Mr. Hoy, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Squires Coleman substituted with Councillor Ian Wilson. Councillor Sharp substituted with Councillor Mike Sutton, and we also have another member of the committee who can't make it, unfortunately, and that's Councillor Page. Moving on to the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of June 2025. Before we agree the minutes of the meeting, I have been asked to clarify the voting numbers from that meeting. So if you bear with me, I'll just go through the voting numbers. Application 25/00156/full, Building A, Foundry Business Park, Station Approach Hockley. The voting was 8-4, none against, and abstentions 3. So that was approved. Application 24/00015/FUL, Building C, Foundry Business Park, Station Approach Hockley. The voting for that was 4-6, against 3, abstentions 2. So the result was that was carried. Last one was application number 25/00251/full. That is 5 Polstead Close, Rayleigh, Essex. The voting was 11-4, no abstentions and none against. So that was approved. With that being added to the minutes, are we all agreed with the minutes for the last meeting, please? Agreed. Thank you. Okay, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Steptoe.
As a member of Essex County Council.
Thank you. Okay, we have one item referred from the weekly list. That's item 4 we're on to, and that is item reference 24/00479/full, 1 Eastwood Road, Rayleigh, Essex. Katie Rogers, you will present the report. Thank you.
Thank you. The site is at the junction of Eastwood Road and High Street in Rayleigh. The proposal is to change the use of the premises to a hot food takeaway and install a new shopfront and extraction flue. On the plan on screen, you can see the application site it's edged red, but that's fairly difficult to see the red. It's the dark grey rectangle in the position where near my cursor is. So a kitchen would be installed to the rear of the unit in this position at the back of here. And to the front of this would be a customer collection counter, and that would have the access onto Eastwood Road, which is at the right-hand side of the screen. This is the proposed roof plan. And the proposed extraction flue would be installed on the flat roof towards the rear of the flat roof, close to the two-storey wall of the adjoining premises. So the plan on the left-hand side of the screen shows the existing shop front and flat roof to the premises, and the plan on the right-hand side of the screen shows the proposed development. The proposed extraction flue would have a horizontal section which would run across the flat roof. If you can see my cursor, it's quite difficult to see, but there. And then there would be a vertical section of the extraction flue which would be encased and rendered with a white painted finish, save for the very top, which would be the jet cowl, which would just project above the roof of the neighbouring building. The proposal also involves the removal of the existing shopfront, which consists of glazing with aluminium frames and centrally positioned double doors. The replacement shopfront would reduce the amount of glazing by incorporating stall risers and would include one centrally positioned door. The site is located within the conservation area, designated because of the abundance of buildings of historic and architectural significance. Planning policy seeks to protect heritage assets, including conservation areas, from development which would undermine their significance and promotes development which would enhance their significance. The proposed replacement shopfront, subject to appropriate external materials being used in construction, is considered to be more historically appropriate and would enhance the architectural character of the building and of the wider conservation area. The proposed extraction flue would be in a prominent position, and despite the proposed rendered enclosure of the vertical section, it is considered that this feature would detract from the architectural interest of the conservation area and have a negative impact on the significance of the heritage asset. The requirement is that development protects or enhances the conservation area, and in terms of the proposed extraction flue, it is considered that this would neither protect nor enhance, but cause harm. Planning policy requires that substantial weight is given to this harm. There is no objection to the proposed use of the premises as a hot food takeaway, which would be an appropriate use in the town centre location. Although no parking for customers or staff will be provided on site, given the town centre location, the availability of public transport and public car parks, we consider that that would provide suitable alternatives to on-site provision of car parking. The proposal to position a large extraction flue to the flat roof in a visually prominent position is, however, considered to cause harm to the character and appearance of the conservation area, such that the recommendation is one of refusal.
Thank you, Katie. Can I just ask our officer to just go and turn the mics down at the moment? It's very distracting what's actually happening with the PA at the moment. No, it's everyone. Yes, Councillor Wilson. Sorry, can you use the mic?
Thank you, Chair.
Whoop.
I just wish to point out that actually the microphones were doing this on Tuesday with the feedback,
okay.
so just to make you aware.
All right, well, if the officer can't do anything with it, we'll have just to bear with it. I do apologise. Okay, we've turned it down a little bit, and hopefully that will deal with it. It does seem like it's going to be an ongoing problem. Right, we have no visiting members, and we have the ward members, Councillors Cross, Linden and Sutton. I would point out that I do have a presentation, or a statement rather, I should say, from Councillor Belton, who is the one who actually referred this, but I shall wait until it comes to everyone to talk, and I'll bring that out first. So are there any ward members who would like to speak first on this? Oh, sorry, I do apologise. I'm getting a bit distracted by what's happening with the PA, sorry. Then I ask Mr. Kelly, and I do apologise for that, if you'd like to come up and... I understand you're speaking in support of the application. You will have 5 minutes. I'll give you a minute notice when you come towards the end. Can you turn the mic on?
Okay. Good evening. My name is Kevin Kelly, and by way of introduction, our company owns and manages some commercial and residential property in Rayleigh Town Centre. This started 31 years ago with Rayleigh Lanes and now includes 97 to 103 High Street, so that's Wilmers through to what was Lawrence Anthony Homes, and 1 to 11 Eastwood Road, odd numbers, and lately the large Boots in 77 High Street. 1 Eastwood Road and 103 High Street have been on the market to let since the beginning of February this year. Interest has been extremely sparse, and we have no confidence in securing an acceptable alternative user at present. We've been approached on a number of occasions by occupiers which have been rejected by us, such as a number of Turkish barbers and also vape shops. We do believe in competition, however, have always wanted to keep a balance and varied offer to the property we manage. As an example, if we agreed to the proposal to join 1 Eastwood Road together with 103 High Street for a new Turkish barbers, this would just be at the detriment of Mark Hudson next door or of Gusson, who's next along in Eastwood Road. As an aside, 103 is now under offer to an independent local chiropodist. According to the officer's report, our proposal for 1 Eastwood Road would facilitate the opening, which would facilitate the opening of a Thai food takeaway, would positively contribute to the town centre by diversifying the range of offerings available. At present, it is vacant and offers little to the vitality of the town. The report says there is no objection to the change of use. The report agrees our proposed shopfront design would enhance the architectural character of the building and wider conservation area. The report states that overall, the development would maintain an appropriate relationship with the neighbouring properties and would not result in a demonstrable harm to the residential amenity. My understanding of the officer's conclusion for the recommendation for refusal is a subjective opinion relating to the appearance of the extraction flue. The officer does state that the harm, which is described as less than substantial, must be weighed up against the public benefits of the development. So, to us, this is opinion. The visual aspect of these buildings are extremely important to us. We totally redecorated the upper parts of 1 to 11 Eastwood Road and the gable wall to 103 High Street relatively recently. This in no way directly increases the income from the property, but we believe that preserving the overall appearance of the entrance to the main high street has an unmeasurable addition to the shopping experience, helping to add an attraction to the town centre. It is therefore of no interest to us to adversely affect that visual attraction. The proposed flue will not be seen as an aluminium vertical box. It will be encased in an accessible rendered and painted cover. This will totally blend in with the existing gable wall and give the appearance of a traditional chimney. As part of these works, we will redecorate the total gable wall so it is all a uniform and clean white colour. So just to conclude, the reasoning behind a recommendation to refuse consent, and I'm going to put this in here, to get this long-term vacant shop unit back to trading, is the visual impact of what will be seen as no more than a traditional rendered chimney on a gable wall. We do not feel this is justified and we'd request that you grant consent. I have here, what we've done is just to, on a photograph, add in what it would look like alongside the existing chimney. So that's the existing. Would you like me to walk? Is this like round one? Thank you. Is that right? So one's the existing and one's the proposed. So that's the proposed and that's the existing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelly. I appreciate that. Yes. Yep. Officers will need to see those photographs as well. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelly. Okay, while they are being passed round, we have ward councillors in attendance. Would any ward councillors like to speak on the matter first? Councillor Linden. Are you speaking as ward councillors, or do you want to be involved in the debate after? Or do you want to reserve to speak in the debate after?
I will speak as a ward councillor.
The problem with that is you can't vote afterwards. You're aware of that? If you speak as ward councillor, I'm being advised that you can't vote afterwards.
Okay. I will reserve and I'll speak after that.
Okay, I thought you might. Same again? Okay, thank you. Right, well, in that case then, what I'll do, I'll start off with Daniel Belton's, Councillor Belton's statement.
Sorry, Chairman, would it be okay if we just look at these first? Because I can't look at pictures and listen to you
Sorry,
at the same time.
say again?
Would it be possible for everyone to have looked at these pictures first before you start
Sure.
speaking again?
Yep.
Just so we can pay proper attention.
Yeah, we'll wait until they've been round then, okay? Give that a moment.
Chair, sorry. My advice to you is that those photographs need to be seen by officers. They should really have an opportunity to tell you and this committee whether they think it's an accurate depiction of what is proposed or not. So before we move on, I would recommend that officers give you some advice. And if they're not able to assess whether or not that is an accurate depiction because they haven't had an opportunity to assess it before the committee tonight, those pictures really should be disregarded by the committee in their consideration.
For the members of the public, just to be clear, Nagla on the end is our legal representative on the council, so she's coming at us from a legal point of view, so as you're clear on that, okay?
Is it okay to speak? Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I'm looking at these, and it certainly does show the vertical section of the flue that would be enclosed and with a white rendered finish, with the cowl projecting above that. it looks to me like an accurate, representation of what was shown on the elevation plan. What isn't shown, but what might not be visible in some positions, how close you get to the building, is the horizontal section. And there is a sort of parapet, if you like, so that might shield that in some instances, but from maybe a view further back, you might get a glimpse of the section that wouldn't be enclosed.
Thank you. I think that satisfies our legal point of view, yeah? Thank you. Okay, so who would like to speak first? Oh, hang on, let me do... I shall read out Councillor Belton's statement first. Apologies that I cannot attend this evening's meeting to present this myself. This application relates to a long vacant unit at 1 Eastwood Road, right in the heart of Rayleigh Town Centre. At present, the building is contributing nothing to the vitality of the High Street. This proposal would bring the shop back into use through an established business which would improve the shopfront and make a positive contribution to our local economy. Whilst I recognise the property sits within a conservation area, those that know this end of Eastwood Road will recognise that it doesn't have a specific street scheme theme and instead provides a mix of shop frontages and residential flats. The proposed shopfront is in keeping with the area and in fact represents an enhancement compared with the existing aluminium frontage. The applicant has shown a willingness to improve the character of the street. Concerns have been raised by officers regarding the flue. While I acknowledge its visibility, it is enclosed and mitigated, and the public benefits of bringing a vacant unit back into use, jobs, choice and vibrancy, should outweigh that limited harm. The change of use itself serves no harm to our diverse town centre, and feedback from residents and visitors alike is that an occupied unit is always preferred over a vacant one. I would like to remind everyone of one of this council's core themes from our corporate plan: economy and prosperity, an inclusive economy that delivers inward investment to support the growth of businesses, jobs and tourism. In my mind, this application fits the brief entirely. To conclude, this proposal secures investment in a vacant property, strengthens our town centre and enhances the shopfront within the conservation area. I urge members to support the application. Okay, so moving on. Who would like to speak? Councillor Linden.
Thank you. And also thank you for reading out Councillor Belton, who saved me a lot of what I was going to say. I do agree with the information that she has put down there. I'll try and get back and forth to the... I've actually walked each one of the roads down Eastwood Road, the High Street, to try and actually see the visibility of that particular flue and the top of the building. It's very actually hard to see that when you're walking down Eastwood Road because of the flats, which are not actually shown on your plans, but to the right-hand side of that. To the very right-hand side of the building, there's actually a metal door. On the pub next to that, or on the Pizza Express, there's two chimneys on that particular building. When you're actually looking at from each different angle, I cannot see that the street scene would be diversely affected by this particular application. We are very much trying to ensure that the high street and all the shops, all the buildings are actually full. This is a different type of takeaway that's coming in, so it'll actually enhance the area. That particular area also is right on the roundabout. People are more concerned about looking at the roundabout, looking at the crossings, than rather looking up at that particular building. I would definitely recommend that it's not going to adversely affect that particular scene of that building and that area. If it was at the other end of the high street, maybe, but not that particular area. I do apologise for coming in and out.
Unfortunately, I think that's going to be the story of the night. Yeah, other councillors, can you just hold back a minute, because I believe we have some photographs of the street scene which might actually help. Katie?
So, do you want me to speak? I'll just speak to these photos then. They might put some context to what Councillor Linden just sort of described. So I don't have street scene angles from all of the points that were referred to, but this is the street scene looking at the site from Eastwood Road. And I think reference was made to the flats on Eastwood Road close by, which I think are these sort of two-storey with the windows above those retail and other units at ground floor here. So as you approach the site from Eastwood Road, yes, I guess that would shield the view of the roof or the flat roof of this site somewhat. I'll just see what other... I've got this street scene, but I appreciate that's like taken in the middle of the roundabout. So Councillor Linden's point about the sort of busyness of the highway and the road network around there, it might be visible further back from this position, but that is showing the corner and the high street off to the left-hand side and Eastwood Road to the right-hand side. And then we have this view, which is closer, and this is the frontage of the neighbouring units on High Street. And you'll see in that image the existing white rendered chimney and the proposed extraction flue that would be encased behind that would project out slightly beyond that, but would be shielded to some extent by that existing chimney. I think that's just a close-up. That's it. Sorry. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Katie. I think that's quite helpful. I believe Councillor Sutton, you were first. Nope. Okay, Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few observations. One is that because there is the existing chimney stack with air vents, I'd like to make a planning condition that the chimney will be at least higher than what the chimney stack is at the moment because of the ventilation on that into those premises upstairs. You'll be surprised how much actually smells of cooking and what have you come out of a chimney, especially continental and Asian smells. So there are vents in that chimney that's already there, and I do think that the chimney should be stacked somewhat higher so that ventilation can be drawn away from the roof and away from that chimney. Also, are there any filters in the chimney stack, and where are the accesses to that chimney stack, that proposed one? There doesn't seem to be any access points there, which have not been indicated. I do think that there should be access points and also some sort of filtration in that chimney stack as well. As for the ground light, the ground part of the filtration, would that be enclosed in a white cladding as well, so that it looks as though it's still the wall, if you see what I mean, rather than...
You're talking about sorry to interrupt you. You're talking about the horizontal.
Yeah, the horizontal piece. Is that going to be white cladded as well, so that it looks like the wall rather than stacks or separate stacks of equipment? I do think that should be put into the condition as well. I see nothing else, although the assessment from the fabricators does say that it's a low to medium impact. And by what do they mean by low to medium? Is it because the stack is not high enough, or I don't know what the filters are in that to filter out that smell. So I leave that to the officer. Thank you.
Katie, would you like to come back on those?
Yeah, thank you. So, first point about the height. So I can show the elevation plan again if anybody wants me to, but the the proposed vertical section with the cowl on top is higher than the existing chimney that wouldn't be altered as part of this proposal. So this new extraction system will vent at a higher level. I don't have a precise height for you, I'm afraid. Odour control. So there was an odour assessment submitted with the application, which is referenced in the report. That document does explain the different types of filters that will go into this system, which seems comprehensive to me. We didn't get a response from our environmental health team, but I did speak to one of the environmental health officers today, and I think if it would be appropriate if members were minded to recommend, grant permission to impose a planning condition just to secure that detail that's been submitted and the maintenance of that in line with the manufacturer's details. I don't have any details of how they would access that, but that would be for the applicant to secure, to make sure that they can have access to the filters to carry out the maintenance that would be required. In terms of the horizontal section of the extraction system, there is no indication on the submission that would be enclosed in the same way as the vertical section would. And I think it is this application and the details of it that we are being asked to, or you're being asked to determine whether it's acceptable or not an alternative with enclosing that might require additional development on the roof. I think that dealt with everything.
Thank you. Councillor Stanley, you wish to come back?
Yes, please, Chair. Yeah, could I make that as a condition then, please, as for the extraction unit? I would like to see it somewhat, what the distance is between the height of the exhaust chimney to the chimney that's already there, because of I did notice that there was vents, and if it gets sucked in, then there's going to be hell to pay. So I would like to have a condition of the height of the chimney to be raised, and also the a white cladding to go in front of the horizontal, please. Thank you.
My understanding from what Katie has brought to us is that the height has actually been approved as being okay. Looking at the existing chimney that it's against, I don't think that would be functional if it had been capped off at the roof level as it is. So the expectation, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that has been capped off. So getting...
It might have been capped off at the top, but there are air vents that go into the chimney, and if that smell reached inside the property, which it would do if the fireplace was still open as a feature of the room, it would then smell into that room. So that's the reason for the chimney being somewhat well above the roof level. Thank you.
Okay, I think, Katie, I'm not sure how we would progress on that one.
I don't think that we can impose a condition that requires this chimney to be any higher than is as proposed. The application is before you, and it shows the height of the chimney as proposed.
I think we're going to have to move on from the officer's explanation of this, because I think we could end up going round and round in circles on this one. The application is as it is, so we have to consider the application as it is. One of the things that I think you've picked up on, which I do kind of agree with, is the horizontal flues. I'm guessing that they're left exposed to agree for maintenance. What could do there maybe is to suggest, not condition, but suggest to the applicant that they might want to actually just put a facade across the front of it so it doesn't stop any maintenance or anything like that. It's just a suggestion. So I'm not taking it any further than that because we have to go on what we've got in front of us. Okay? All right, so I'll come to you in a minute. We've got Councillor Hoyes next.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief. I think much of what I was going to say has been covered already. And my electronic device then chooses that time to cut out. Right, and go blank. Right, got it back on. Yeah, I've looked at this application. I'm aware of the points Councillor Belton made as the leading member on economic development and regeneration for the previous 2 years. I'm aware of the High Street and the requirements of the High Street. As I see it, the only identifiable issue or harm is the chimney, and that's being described as less than substantial harm at a low level. So under the NPPF, we're then saying that weighing that against the public benefit, you've got reuse of a vacant unit, boost the local economy and the evening economy, an improved shopfront design in the conservation area. And I think personally that these do outweigh the harm created by the chimney. I think if we try to change the chimney height now to make it higher, that might then make it more harm into the conservation area because it's going to be more obvious. It's going to stick out, shall we say. So at this point, I'm minded to approve the application, and if there's someone moves that, I'll support it.
Councillor Gooding.
Yeah, I've listened to what the officers have explained to us, and obviously read the report, and I did fully respect the fact that it is a conservation area. However, I too agree that the enhanced contribution to the economy and the prosperity of the High Street, I feel that this would be of benefit to the local community. Therefore, I would recommend a approval.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you very much. As many of you know here, I used to run Barrington's, so I've got experience with hot food vendors on the high street. I do support this, and I think it's going to be very good for the high street. But my only concern is, whilst we sit and tit for tat over the aesthetics of a chimney, my main concern with it is the actual, like Chris said here, is the odour side of it. Yeah, one thing I would, whether it be a condition, whether it be a recommendation, one thing I would be more concerned about is we go back to the filtration side of it. Could I recommend that environmental health only gets called out over something like scents and odours rather than aesthetics. For it to fit in with the area, I would personally like to recommend that it has in the filtration a triple filter of a carbon filter, a pre-mesh and SOP filter, as well as a baffle filter system. If you can fill those items, as well as having easy access to clean the upright of it, because it is a very long chimney, and if you do not have access to be able to clean that, that has the potential to become a fire risk later on down the road. But they're the only things that I'd like to see in it. Apart from that, I think it's going to be a very, very valuable asset to the town.
Thank you. Katie, you want to come back on that? Filtration, etc.?
All I would say is, I know there's a, don't think there's a motion on the table yet, but if, just be mindful that I think we would need to impose some conditions, standard conditions, time, bear with me, time, conditions, materials for use on the external works to the shop front, and then I would probably also say an odour control condition, and what I would suggest with that, we would take advice on the wording of that with our environmental health team to make sure that that's appropriately worded.
Okay, would members be happy then to delegate that sort of side of things to officers? Yeah, okay. So, Councillor Hoy, I believe you were hinting at a motion to approve.
Yes, Chairman, I propose that we approve this application.
Hang on a minute. I think I have some more people who want to actually talk on this one at the moment.
I was just going to second.
Councillor Linden.
I was just going to second.
Hang on a minute. Councillor Mrs Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I was indeed getting our make, but that's great. I'd just like to point out that actually the High Street, particularly that part, is still, as we are all fully aware, really in the conservation area. So page 30, paragraph 19, I'd just like to ask the officers if they could secure via a pre-commencement condition regarding the shop front, so that actually it does fit in. We are in a conservation area, and it would be quite nice for the shop front to reflect that. It doesn't at the moment. Thank you.
I think if I'm right, the proposal is to actually put a new shop front in there, which is much more in keeping with the area there. So, Katie, I don't know if you want to comment.
Yep. So I think what the member is saying is that we want to secure the implementation of the new shop front. So not just the use that's potentially going to be approved coming into effect and the installation of the extract duct on the chimney, but maybe weighing into your decision is the fact that the new shop front will be an enhancement to the conservation area. And it's unlikely that that wouldn't actually take place, but we can impose a condition to make sure that it does.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. That would be my preference, to make sure it does. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we have a proposal from Councillor Hoy, seconded by Councillor Linden. Thank you. Do we need to include the conditions that we've discussed on that, Katie? Or are we happy to vote on...
I'll repeat the conditions that we're going to
I think that might be wise. Thank you.
So it would be a standard time condition that goes on any consent, and that's a legal requirement. Materials to be agreed for use in the new shop front. An odour control condition, the wording of which to be discussed with our environmental health team, and a condition requiring the implementation of the new shop front, given that that's weighing into the decision about the sort of planning balance and the enhancement helping to outweigh the harm caused by the extraction duct.
Okay, thank you. So
I just had an indication about another condition about, I think, cladding or putting in some sort of addition to the flat roof to sort of shield the horizontal section. Now, that's not proposed as part of the application, so we would be adding in an element that, we are at the moment not clear about what that would look like or what, how that would appear on the roof. So my view is potentially that we determine the application as submitted without such a condition, because it's not part of the submission.
Councillor Hoy.
Sorry, I think the chairman suggested something like an advisory. Would that be possible?
I mean, yes, we can add an informative, and then the applicant can, do what they would like with that information.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Okay, so we have a proposal and a seconder for approval on this item. Can I have a show of hands for those who are looking for approval? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you, members. I'm being advised that I have to say that he was approved. Okay, moving on to item 5, reference 23/00482/FUL, site of 33 and 35 Castle Road, Rayleigh. John Harrison will present the report. Thank you, John.
This is a site plan. The site is an L-shaped one, as you can clearly see on the plan, which has got a fairly narrow frontage, which at the moment has roughly Victorian-aged pair of semi-detached houses. But to the rear, it broadens out. But I understand it used to be part of the gardens of the houses next door, but it's now been acquired, and the proposal for development of it. Could we have the next slide, please? There are two elements to this proposal. The proposal is to knock down the houses on the front and build a single detached house. Now, that has already been granted planning permission a while back, and this proposal, apart from the garden size, isn't changing significantly, but the original scheme had the whole of the garden whole of the site earmarked for garden of it. Obviously, the garden now proposed is just a more normal size one. Now, there's no need to sort of revisit the history of that application, but you still need to consider the proposals in relation to the rest of the site, and I'll be coming back to that later. The site is right on the edge of Rayleigh Town Centre, and we think a development along these lines is appropriate for it. It's an obvious site for housing. We need houses. We've got a shortage of supply, and flats in a location like this would be acceptable in principle. What we feel, this is trying to get a quart into a pint pot. It's too much. It's overdevelopment. There are several problems with it. I will go through the reasons for refusal in a moment, but before I say that, quite a few neighbours have expressed concern about the design. Now, to a degree, that's a subjective judgment. Our view as officers is it is a good design. It's, in terms of appearance, it works well, but there are, although the architect has put a lot of thought into it to try and make it good and workable, there are several snags which basically relate to the reasons for refusal, and I'll go through those briefly in turn. The first one is that the parking spaces don't meet the new standards adopted at the end of last year. They're shown as 2.5 metres wide, and we would require 2.9 metres. Cars are getting wider with side airbags and so on, and we need to apply the current standard. We could have some debate about the number of parking spaces to be provided. We think this is a reasonable number, although arguably you could have more. It's an area where parking is a problem, but also there's a public car park next door, but this would provide one space for each flat. Also, there's a deficiency on the cycle parking, that they don't make provision for non-standard cycles. The second reason for refusal relates to not meeting our open space standards. So all the balconies are below the 5 square metre standard for balconies as part of the open space provision. But there's another fundamental problem with the scheme, that the amenity open space, which is primarily intended for the ground floor flats, is not readily accessible because the parking spaces block it. So if there's a car park there, it would be difficult for somebody to get in, and almost certainly impossible for a wheelchair user. So it's not very accessible open space. Also, the open space for the detached dwelling on the front, well, that's going to be 93 square metres, and our standard is 100 square metres. I realise it's not very short of the standard, but nevertheless it shows this is going to be overdevelopment. Moving on to the third reason, the flats which face onto the car park, they're on the ground floor, their windows would be very visible. They would have, they would be, people in the rooms would be very on view, and that is not good in privacy terms. Alternatively, if you were to build a 2 metre or thereabouts high fence or wall, they would then have a very restricted outlook. Also, those flats, because they've got the balconies protruding above them, have very poor lighting to their main living rooms, which again isn't good. Also, the flat next to the amenity open space has windows right onto it. So again, they have unsatisfactory levels of privacy because people using the amenity space would be looking directly into them. And finally, in this respect, one of the first floor flats has a bedroom with no windows, only a roof light, and that's a poor standard of accommodation. We would expect all window or all habitable rooms to have a window. Moving on to the fourth reason for refusal, the refuse storage area, which is on the off the access road in to the flats behind, next to the dwelling, is right next to the garden of the house, and quite likely communal refuse areas can have stuff dumped or dropped outside the bins, and it starts to smell, and that's not very good in amenity terms. Also, the distance it is from the road is unsatisfactory. It's too far for a bin man or I should say bin person or something, to drag or carry a bin, and it wouldn't be possible for the lorry to drive in because they then have to back out onto the main road, and again, that's not satisfactory. The fifth reason relates to the Bristol Court to the north, the sheltered housing scheme. If you look at the plan, it's a sort of grey blob in the middle of the plan. That's set lower, about half a storey, and they have windows which would face onto this. At the moment, there is a very high hedge, but we cannot be sure that that would remain there permanently, so you get problems of overlooking, which we don't think to be satisfactory. And the final reason for refusal is the bin storage area for the flat. Although it meets the standard in our development management plan, it doesn't allow for any expansion. And now, because we do more recycling and requirements are more, it really ought to be larger. So that's the basic objections to the scheme. We've got some 3D visualizations, which I think will show you more clearly what the scheme would be like, and I will talk about some of those concerns. That's the view towards the frontage. The detached house is on the left of the plan, and the block of flats behind. As I explained, there's an access road in where you can see the fire engine. And there's car parking in the flats behind. Next one, please. This is the view if you were sort of flying above the car park next door. The flats I mentioned, which would have inadequate privacy and lose light because of the balconies, or the three with the gables roughly in the centre of the plan. Next one, please. That's the front elevation of the flat. We think, although some may disagree, we think this is a good design, and that shows it's broken up. It's not one big lump of development. You will have read reference to perforated windows in the report, and you might be wondering what one of those is. If you look at the plan of the first floor, the building to the right as you look towards it, that's the window. It's basically perforated with holes in the bricks rather than being a normal conventional window. So if you look at that just to the right, first floor, just to the right of the centre, and that's what a perforated window would look like. I think there's one more. Yes, and that's the elevation to the street scene, showing the house which has already been approved, and also the entrance to the site behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to talk on this, can I just make a request? My vice has asked if you want to speak, can you stick your hands up and keep your hand up until he actually acknowledges that he's got you down. Right. So thank you for that. Okay, we've got the same ward councillors as before. So do you want to speak on the application or speak during the debate? So you're same for the debate. Okay, so anyone want to speak on it? Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chair. For one, looking at the proposal of the architectural design and having perforated windows, I'm not too sure whether that will go down very well with the occupant, looking out of little blocks of squares all over the place. As for the parking, looking at it, if the cars were coming in and parking with the front away from the building, that means the exhaust would be in the building from the car, not necessarily that they've got all electric points for their cars. I didn't see any electric points there at all. It wasn't mentioned on the introduction of the site. The other thing that really is also doesn't really help is that you haven't got an escape route from that bedroom without windows. And is there any escape routes for fire or anything else that's in the property? There was no mention of any escape routes of fire should fire break out. As we already know, some properties do have this problem with escape routes, and people have died in them. So there was nothing there in the way of fire prevention or anything. On the spaces alone, just to look at the cycle requirements, parking requirements, refuge requirements, and so on, it doesn't seem as though this building is going to take place. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else? Councillor Cribbs. Yeah, I don't know if you just want to hang back a minute. I think John wants to actually come back on some of the items that Councillor Stanley has brought back. Sorry.
There were 3 points made there. The perforated windows, the rooms have another window as well, so all right. Yes, the perforated windows will be primary for light, not but for viewing out, we could use the other window. All the parking spaces have electric points shown, but obviously in present climate they won't all have or unlikely all to have electric cars. I don't think we could justify refusing an application because exhaust fumes might get into the flats. I can see it would be a problem, but I'd like to hope that if that proves to be a problem, the two neighbours would talk to each other and resolve the problem and back into their spaces. The escape route for the bedroom, that would be covered more by the building regulations rather than planning legislation, but the fire and rescue people have not raised any objection to the scheme, so I presume they consider the escape routes are adequate.
Thank you. Councillor Cripps.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to shout. On the visual that we got up on the screen there, the turning between you've got an L shape and there's a turning on the corner there. There's a little bit of fence scarfed off at an angle. Is that meant to be two-way traffic there, bearing in mind there's a door opening onto that area? I think it might have been the first street view.
Sorry, I'm not clear.
Yeah, sorry, you see the L shape?
Yeah.
And on the inside of the L, there's a corner there with a bit of scarfing off, the fence scarfed off there. Can you see that?
Yeah.
What I'm asking is that gap there supposed to be two-way traffic?
Right. The road is wide enough for two-way traffic. I suspect that that corner, if two cars meet, one would hold back or reverse so that the other could get through.
Okay, that's all I want.
Okay. Councillor Mrs Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that I totally agree with the officers for the reasons that were listed, and that the parking spaces were too small, the balconies are too small, waste collection I think would be a nightmare. I'm very familiar with that road. It's already not wide enough. So to have a waste vehicle trying to reverse onto there will be brave, to say the least. Lack of disabled access. And the impact that the building would have on Britain Court, overlooking, and just the lack of privacy. I think the whole site is just overdeveloped, and I would support the officer's opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Steptoe.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very much in support of the reasons for refusal. What surprises me is if this proposer had spent the time talking to our officers in pre-application, I think a lot of these issues would have been resolved. I suspect this is very much a speculative application to see how far they can push it. I don't think it'll be the last we'll see of it. So, Chair, if it helps, I'd be happy to propose refusal on this.
Councillor Gooding.
I would just like to appreciate the thoroughness of the officers for the assessment of this, especially to include the assertion of the equality impact assessment that it would have, and I totally support what the officers have recommended, refusal.
Okay, Councillor Steptoe has proposed refusal. Councillor Linden.
Yes, one thing that hasn't been taken into consideration, Castle Road has already got 3 blocks of flats, which I think struggle with car parking, struggle with amenities, struggle with access for the refuge as well. But I am actually quite surprised that this has been brought, particularly with all of the items of refusal. I think you say it's a well-designed building from the outside aesthetically, but once you go through the front door, it's an absolute disaster. So I'm a little confused how it's come, and I'm more confused and worried what Councillor Steptoe has just said, that they're speculative and they're just seeing what they can get away with and this will come back. And I think that should be taken into consideration if any future plans do actually come back in front of us. But we do have to actually realise that Castle Road is already a road which has got a number of blocks of flats on that road, and some of the reasons for refusal, I think some of those other flats actually have got no parking or little parking, got issues with the refuge already. But we do have to be careful because we do need housing. We do need housing within the local area.
I think we can all agree that there are a number of issues why this application in particular should not go forward. And I think that if, in all honesty, I think there could be a lot more reasons for refusal go on there. But if we're going to refuse it, we have got very good grounds for refusing it here. And we do have a motion. Councillor Marriott, sorry.
Chairman, may I second Councillor Steptoe's proposal?
Okay, so the proposal for refusal is made and seconded. Can I have an indication on those who are in favour of refusal? Again, that is unanimous, so that is refused. Thank you. John is escaping while he can. Wrong one. Okay, now moving to item 6, reference 24/00591/FUL, land opposite 92 to 102 Windermere Road, Hullbridge. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Yeah, very well behaved. Arwell Evans will present the report.
Good evening, members. This application essentially considers 2 matters. The first being the omission of a balcony at first floor west elevation of the apartment block. And the second matter is the omission of the internal lift, which was shown on the approved plans accompanying planning reference 200332 full, the original planning permission for 17 units, comprising 11 open market dwellings and 6 affordable units, and then a latter section 73 application reference, which is 2300274. Just to provide some context then, so this site forms part of the SCR 6 allocation for Hullbridge. So the redlined area is the area which has by now been developed. It wasn't developed out when the...
Sorry, on a point of order, can the officer identify the red line area, please? I have no idea what the red line area is.
Okay, so we're just showing it with the cursor now, just circling that area. It's that rectangular area that the cursor, the arrow's going around now. So the site is obviously to the southern side of Windermere Avenue. The site wasn't developed wholly when the 500 odd dwellings were developed because of the land ownership issues at the time. Just coming on then, just to provide some context. So given what has gone before and the specifics of this current application, no other matter other than those 2 matters highlighted, i.e. the omission of the lift and the omission of 1 balcony, can be taken into account in the determining of this particular application. So just to provide some context, we're just going to go on to slide 2. So this site layout plan is not for consideration, but this is the approved site layout plan, which has remained consistent throughout the two approved planning applications. So if we can take the cursor to the top left, Katie, if you wouldn't mind. So that's the apartment block there. So it's to the right of the access as you're coming in from Windermere Avenue. And then you've got an amenity area to the rear, which is roughly around 180 square metres, just to provide some context then. So, and this apartment block is the affordable element of the scheme. So there's 6 apartments there which are currently tied through the Section 106, which must provide provision of affordable units. Just to clarify with members, some will be familiar with the site in any case, but as of the time that the application was submitted, which is quite some time ago, when I visited the site back in August 2024, the apartment block was pretty well complete, as was the development. We don't know what the reason is for the site not being occupied right now, in particular the 11 open market dwellings, but that is not a factor for us to take into consideration. But that is a question that some have asked. It's not particularly relevant, but I just wanted to point that out. If we can move to some of the photographs, slide 3, please. Have we got photographs of I want photographs of the balcony, if that's okay, of the apartment block. So currently, basically, this photograph was taken in August of 2024. This is the east elevation. So basically, at the time the application was submitted, what it was asking for is, can that apartment block remain like that externally without putting a glass balustrading around that patio door that you see on that gable elevation? And if we can move on to the other photographs, please. The next slide. So that's the rear elevation. Can we go back? Can we go back one, please? Can we go back? Can we go? Yeah. Can we go back to the second picture, please? Yeah, so that's the rear elevation. So on this elevation, the approved plans approved a balcony above the flat roof parapet on your left, and it's approved a balcony on the parapet on the right. So basically, the application as originally submitted was asking for, can that apartment block remain the same, but they didn't propose to put any balconies. We don't have a shot of the west elevation. Officers basically advised the agent that those balconies provided a degree of articulation on the elevations, and really there was no reason as to their omission. So we insisted as officers that those balconies did have to be provided. Subsequently, a revised plan was submitted showing those balconies as being provided as per original approved plans, but omitting the balcony to the west elevation. So what's up for consideration now is just the omission of the balcony on the far side. And apologies, I don't have a picture of the west elevation. It's quite hard to... I didn't get that shot a year ago. Apologies. So basically, what I can update members is that by now, the 3 balconies have been erected and they're in situ. And it's the balcony at the west elevation is the one that's proposed for omission. The reasons they've provided are linked to building control to do with the distance from the gable end to the site boundary. So it is building control led, but it was a very tight boundary on the west elevation. So on the balcony element, what I'd like to say is that the first floor accommodation is provided by a balcony on the north elevation. And when you consider the supplementary planning document 2 on housing design, it does propose sort of in terms of it is possible to approve a development with no balcony space, providing there's other areas of open space near. And the calculation of the assessment by officers is that given there is an amenity area to the rear that is immediately available for the use of the occupant of that balcony, there is no undermining of planning policy in enabling that development to remain as it is and omitting the western balcony. I think that's fundamentally it on that. We'll move on to the second point, which is the omission of the lift then. So if we can go to there was an approved plan. There's a slide there. It's quite difficult on PowerPoint to pinpoint them, but essentially the approved floor layout plan, which is I think slide 7 or 8, there's an approved layout plan there. It's very difficult to pick out, but basically what those plans show, perhaps you can take that cursor to that sort of square box. You can see that on the screen, Katie, it shows a lift, doesn't it? If you can take the cursor to it, yeah. So where that cursor is, what the approved plan did show was a lift. So what I can confirm is, I've had confirmation from the agent this week, is that the stairs that is proposed in this application has already been installed. So I'm pointing out to members that there is an element of this application now that is retrospective. So there isn't permission in place for the stairs. That was their proposal. They've gone ahead and installed the stairs ahead of approval. So I just wanted to state what the state of play is with that. But as stated within the summary and main body of the report, an internal lift is not an element specifically required by RDC planning policy or by approved Part M of the building regulations, and its provision is not considered necessary to make the development acceptable. So officers advise that apartment blocks providing stair access within developments have been approved within the district. And I think there are a couple of appeal decisions for a site in. There's one appeal decision for a site, I think it's Gemsco Garage at London Road as well. So I think the question which officers must ask themselves, and also members in the determination of this application, is, if the stairs were originally proposed, would there have been any reason to find the development objectionable? It's an officer's view is that should this have been the case, there would have been no reason to refuse the stairs at that stage. So just to indicate also that officers have engaged with the council's building control, which confirms that the development will and must be M41 compliant. And M41, in terms of Part M of the building regs, M41 is access to most people required for all new buildings. So the development will have to comply with that. But in terms of compliance with M42, which is accessible and adaptable dwellings, and M43, which is wheelchair user dwellings, which is a higher optional requirement, those requirements are only required to be met if there was a planning permission requiring that attainment. So I think on larger sites, there is a core strategy policy on large site developments where certain amount of dwellings need to be M42 compliant. But this sort of scale of development is not within that realm of requiring compliance. Just to finalise then, so no such condition was placed on the original 23332 or the 23274. Therefore, so what we're looking at is not the inclusion of the condition, but is there any reason basically to find the provision of the stairs objectionable in planning policy terms? Moving on and finalising with equalities then. And this has been considered and is included at 2.13 to 2.18 of the report. And paragraph 2.18 of the report summarises it quite well. So it's in accordance with section 149 of the Equality Act. Councils have had to have due regard to the public sector equality duty in assessing this application. The implications for the removal of the lift have been considered in relation to individuals with protected characteristics, particularly disabled people, older residents and families with young children. The Equality Impact Assessment identifies potential barriers to access and outlines mitigation measures, including the provision of accessible ground floor units and compliance to the building regulations. And while the decision does not require a specific outcome, the equality impacts are being consciously considered and appropriately weighed in the recommendation. Officers are satisfied that the recommendation does not result in unlawful discrimination and that reasonable steps are being taken to advance equality of opportunity and foster good relations between different groups. And just to provide some context, as a development as a whole, you've got 17 units. All of them comply with M41. 4 units are not wheelchair accessible. But in terms of the consideration about disproportionality, which comes into the consideration, 13 of the dwellings are accessible to wheelchairs, but There's 4 of them which are not. So just to conclude there, for the recommendation, subject to the fact that this proposal should be bound by the terms of the original and existing legal agreement, citing contributions A to E, carrying forward all the requirements of the previous permissions and the planning conditions, the recommendation is that planning permission be granted.
Thank you. It's worth pointing out, by the way, on this particular application, it was on the agenda for the July committee, and in agreement with the officers, we pulled it off of the agenda purely and simply to be able to check the legal position. Understanding that this is something that was causing quite a lot of concern for people, that is exactly what we've done. We have checked the position from a legal point of view on the recommendation that has been put in front of you. So with that knowledge, I think it would be good if we can go on to debate. Who would like to speak? Anyone? Okay, Councillor Hoy, thank you.
Thank you. As a ward councillor, sorry.
Are you speaking as a ward councillor? Because you.
No, I'm just speaking as a member.
Okay.
In that case, sorry, I
clarify.
forgot you mentioned that before. This is something new.
You're just speaking as a member of the committee, then, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm aware of issues that have concerned residents in the past on this, but I recognise the report by the officers is very thorough and goes into the only real 2 points around this about the emission of the lift and about the removal of the balcony on the Western Bay. And reading the report and understanding it, it's quite clear that there are no grounds for refusal, and this application should go through. So I will be supporting the officers' recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Steptoe.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've looked at this long and hard. First of all, I find it very, very difficult as to how this developer suddenly discovered he hadn't got enough room to put a lift in when the drawings clearly stated it. I suspect that perhaps somebody their end needs to have a bit of a training course on how to read a set of drawings. I'm very concerned that that has happened, and that shouldn't happen. I also think that it's something that I personally will take forward to planning policy, that we need to tighten off on the requirements for the lifts and what have you to go back through to planning policy. I still have a concern as to what will happen. We desperately need housing for people, and of course this does limit the type of people that we can actually offer this property to. But I think at the end of the day, I think we're boxed into a corner with the recommendation. I don't think we can do anything else other than to accept the recommendation reluctantly.
Thank you, Councillor Steptoe. Does anyone else wish? Councillor Cripps.
Thank you, Chair. Picking up on Councillor Steptoe's first part of what he was saying then. I struggled with this. It took me 3 lots of reading to go through the Wilkinson paper, which talks about Section 75, which I had, to be honest, had always perceived as, things go wrong on building sites, and sometimes you have to modify the odd dimension or build something differently and so on. But that Wilkinson submission was a bit like a court hearing. It identified lots of precedents. It referred to lots of decisions and so on. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is it made me understand why the officers have to come to the conclusion they've come to. But at the same time, it horrifies me at the power of Section 75 and what we face going forward with a massive new local plan. They can virtually come back on scrapping cherry picking what they want to supply and what they don't want to supply. Now, it has to go through the process, but that process is there. And I think that is going to be abused. Developers can come in with a really sexy looking, proposal that looks very attractive, and then cherry pick later on with what we actually get. Now, given the trouble we get in getting infrastructure anyway, I just wanted to record that the decision is the correct decision by the officers, but I don't like it because it's sort of a precedent again of this NPPF, National Planning Policy Framework, that is a very manipulative document. That's what reading this has really got home to me. It's a very manipulative document, and I fear for the future, frankly. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Cripps. I think we all share your concerns on that one. Councillor Stanley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This staircase that has been put in rather than the lift, it's very late in its orientation, let's put it like that. The original plan was to put a lift in so that it's accessible to everyone. And at a late stage like this, I would have thought that the officers would have said, well, no, that's the plan that you put in is the plan that you put in, and that's the one we agreed to. Not at this late stage to put staircase in, whether that be financially or whatever the case may be, because it's not accessible to everyone. And that is the problem. Staircases, especially concrete staircases, are quite susceptible for people to fall over and really do themselves a lot of harm. Wooden staircases do give a little bit, as some of them will have carpet on them or something like that. But it gives a little bit. You can survive, but you can't survive on a concrete staircase, especially if you're elderly or as you're getting older and you've got that flat upstairs and that sort of thing. It's not comfortable to do, especially if you've got to take up your shopping and that sort of thing. It's very, very, to get up there with your 2 bags of shopping, it's better to go up in a lift than it is a staircase. But my point is that surely we can't have this last minute alterations to the plans and goodness knows what, and it's already been done without approval. This needs to be looked at by the officers in respect of that, because I do think that we've opened the door, and once we've opened the door, we can't close it. It's like the horse has bolted, and now we're trying to get him back. I'm afraid that don't work for me. Thank you.
Oh well.
Yeah, I would just like to come in with a couple of comments. So you'll notice from the addendum, there's a piece in there, but I think basically. I'm listening and I'm hearing what members are saying, but I think our question is, at the end of the day, is, one could come to their own conclusions as to what may have led to those circumstances of how things have developed on site. But I think the question for us is in terms of determining the decision, is it acceptable, so not the why? So I know that there's people in the community asking why, and the speculation. But I think if I was a developer, I know the Section 73 and the legal scope of a Section 73, which is 73A and 73B. So what I would say is, in terms of trying to move a development forward where a developer has already or wants to develop it but not quite in accordance with the approved plan, to go ahead and undertake an element of it which doesn't have permission, obviously, the obvious sort of thinking around that is it does come with its own degree of risk. And, that is a risk that developers take. But I think from our position is that, say, in terms of insistence that they do it in accordance with a plan, the risk is, of course, is if something isn't policy compliant and there's no policy at local or national level to support the council supporting of that sort of change. So there is definitely a risk involved, but as I think my own opinion is that as long as Section 73 remains within the Planning Acts, A and B, I think the B is the retrospective bit, there's an element, this stairs is retrospective because between the point of submission and somewhere within that point of submission and now the stairs have gone in, so there's a massive risk that they've undertaken there. But as planners, I don't know in terms of what we can do because of the powers of Section 73 to enable those changes to be accepted, providing their policy compliance. That was the only point I wanted to make.
Thank you, Alvor. Councillor Marriott.
Chairman, Councillor Cripps has mainly addressed my thoughts on this. It's very concerning that developers can put forward developments with attractive features and then water them down. Is this something that we can look at with our planning policy, or does the national policy override anything that we could do locally to try and discourage developers from developing a habit of doing this? Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is one of those things where it has given us a bit of a jolt here. And I think, as Councillor Steptoe has already said, that this is something that needs to be picked up in future policy, in planning policy discussions. From my point of view, I look at this and I think this is very regrettable that the developer has done this, but we don't have any legal grounds to actually turn this actual application down. We have been very thorough in checking that, and so unless anyone else has got anything else to say, I think we should go to the vote. I will move a motion to accept. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Steptoe. Okay, so the motion, I have to read it all out, sorry about that. It is proposed that the committee resolves that planning permission be approved, subject to the permission being bound by the terms of the original and existing legal agreement entered into under Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act as signed and dated 10th of March 2022, and as cited by the deed of variation relating to the subsequent application made under application reference 23/00274/full, Section 73, planning permission, which was signed on the 15th of January 2024. The heads of terms of which are set out below. A. Financial contributions towards education provision, early years and childcare contributions of £18,887 plus indexation, and secondary education contributions of £74,851 plus indexation. B. Provision and implementation of a residential travel information pack for every household. C. Provision of 12-month season tickets for bus travel to all eligible occupiers of the development, maximum of 2 per household. Provision of 35% affordable housing as cited by the details of the planning application. And E. Payment of a financial contribution of £3,400 at a cost of £200 per dwelling towards the cost of providing the proposed National Cycle Network Route 135, Stock to Southend, and subject to the conditions set out on pages 76 to 84 of the report. We have a proposal and a seconder. Can I have a show of hands for those for the application? How many? Okay. Against? Abstentions? What's the votes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That'd be 9. Yeah. So that is 9 for and 2 abstentions, so that application is approved. Okay, so moving on to item 7, that is reference 25/00457/full, 15 Weir Farm Road, Rayleigh, Members will have been advised this application has been withdrawn. That concludes, therefore, our business this evening. Thank you for your attendance, and the meeting is closed at 21:05. Thank you.